Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players, uncover their stories, and discover what makes them tick. If you love guitar, music, and the backstory of people's lives, stick around. You're in the right place. Hi, this is Craig. Just want to let you know you can now advertise here on Everyone Loves Guitar podcast. For more information, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar, and we've got a really talented English guitar player, producer, writer. We're with, now I realize I just spelled your name wrong. I spelled Stelios, sorry. We're with the wonderful Stelios K, who also goes by Stelios K. Did I get that right?
That sounds fine to me. Yes.
Awesome, man. He's not only a super talented guy, he's also one of the nicest guys. I'm really happy to have him on the show. He's a contemporary guitarist, composer, and producer. He developed an interest in music at age 6 when he started playing guitar. His first professional experience came at the age of 14 when he started playing music at Greek weddings in his native country, Cyprus. After graduating from high school and completing military service, he moved to London where he studied engineering. However, his passion for music proved much stronger. He relocated to LA where he attended Musicians Institute. Back then it was GIT, Guitar Institute of Technology. He then moved back to the UK to continue his music education at the London College of Music, graduated with first-class honors in music performance. His guitar playing is deeply rooted in the long-lasting influences of funk, soul, R&B, blues, and rock with some jazzy influences as well. He's the guitarist and the musical director for the band Shalamar, and he's also worked with a host of artists such as Grammy Award winners Patti Austin and Gloria Gaynor, One Direction, Olly Murs, Jason Donovan, Rick Astley, Belinda Carlisle, Paul Young, Nik Kershaw, Sister Sledge, Mica Paris, and many more. He's also served as the guitarist for house bands such as the UK X Factor Live Tour, Rewind 80s, and Cool Britannia 90s festivals. As a solo artist, his self-titled release called You Are the One was featured on the Jazz FM Records album called Driftin', appearing alongside such soul and smooth jazz greats as Aaron Neville, Patti Austin, Jeff Lorber, and Rick Braun. As a composer, his music can be heard on the BBC, Netflix, Discovery, and History channels where he does licensing, as well as film trailers and commercials for companies like Studio Canal and Bosch. He's also the guitar player for the Anglo-Irish art rockers 5 Grand Stereo. Their debut album, Sex and Money, has received rave reviews from publications such as the Irish Times, The Independent, Music Week, Clash, and Classic Rock magazines, and airplay on radio stations such as BBC Radio 2 and RTE8 Radio 1. The band's appeared on The Late Late Show, and man, I got to tell you, there's some great cuts on that album. We're going to talk about some of the, definitely one of the tracks on that record. And man, you just finished running your first marathon, right? Or half marathon? What was it?
Half marathon, yes.
Dude, how did that?
Me, Craig.
Yeah, man.
Nice to be on the show.
Oh man, it's my pleasure. Tell me about that marathon, because I was like, my knees were just feeling it just watching the photos of that.
Oh man, it was my first ever half marathon. It was a great experience. It was my local half marathon actually, where we live in West London. So I'm familiar with the route and all that and the roads, and it was such a great experience. It was a nice sunny morning, and there was a lot of people out cheering, the crowd and all that. The athletes, and it was really nice. I didn't stop smiling from the beginning to end.
But dude, you're always smiling. That's why I like you so much, man. You're every time I talk to you, you're like the little, the bright ray of sunshine that like makes my day better. So man, that's awesome. How long did you train for that?
Well, I mean, I've been working out, on and off since my teenage years. But for the half marathon, there is a kind of, I guess the minimum recommended time is about 12 weeks.
Oh, wow.
But I think I probably trained for about 4 months, maybe 16 weeks in total. Just slowly building it up. I didn't want to get any injuries and stuff like that. So I kind of took it. I thought I'd allow a bit more time and, take it a bit more easy in the beginning, especially. But yeah, it was great, man.
So that was sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was really pleasantly surprised, with my performance and my time. And basically, I did it I raised money for the Alzheimer's Society, which
That's great.
is a charity here in the UK. My mother is not very well. She suffers from the condition. So I thought this
sorry, man. Yeah.
Yes.
That's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. What is that? Do you have like a link or anything that someone could donate if they're interested in that?
There is a link, actually. There's a Just Giving page. I'm running another one in March. I'm doing another half marathon in March. And the Just Giving page is, I think it's justgiving.com/Stelios K.
Awesome. Justgiving.com/Stelios K if anybody wants to support the Alzheimer's charity that Stelios is running for. So that's cool, man. Had you run that? So that's like, I don't know, you're probably measuring kilos, right?
Yes, we do measure kilos. Yeah.
So here it's like, that would be 13 and change miles.
It's 13.1 miles.
Okay.
And it's 21.1 kilometers, I think.
Did you run a full half marathon before, or was that your first time? Like, what was the most you had run in your training?
Actually, let me correct myself there. In the UK, we have miles, but some people choose to measure in miles, some in kilometers. But I think the longest I ran was nearly 13.1. I did 12 miles about 3 weeks before the event, and then I started tapering it down a little bit too. Yeah, so I was nearly there. I could feel that I would be able to do it. And, on the day, the crowd and all that, it kind of lifts you up. So it doesn't feel as hard as when you're running on your own on a windy day up a hill,
That's cool, man. So I know everybody's saying, Craig, shut up already. Let's get to the music stuff. All right. So let me do that. But I'm always interested in this because, I try to stay in shape, but I could never I got really bad knees. But I mean, that's so impressive. I love running. It feels so good afterwards. It's like so cathartic, man. I wish I could do it. It's really cool.
It's great. I mean, one last thing, if for running and stuff like that, is that it's important. I know you go to the gym and you train quite a lot. It's important to do that as well, because that strengthens the joints and the muscles around, your knees and all that, and that helps to prevent injuries. So it's good to combine the two.
There you go. All right.
Cool.
Next week we'll do some other
exercise.
We'll do skiing. Man,
we'll do the New York Marathon next year together, Craig.
Yeah, I'll wait at the end and I'll have a drink with you. That's about as much as I'll do. Hey, man, you grew up in Cyprus. Okay, so I know Cyprus is an island on the western coast of Asia, but you've mentioned to me that you're Greek. Can you just explain, because I am an ignorant American and I do not know history or international anything. Can you just explain? And let me just I'm not saying all Americans are like that for listening. I'm saying I am, because I'm from New York City, because all we know is like New Jersey, like we heard of Connecticut. We know there's Texas out there and California, but that's it. Can you explain the relationship between Cyprus and Greece?
Well, I mean, first of all, Cyprus is a very small island in the eastern part of the Mediterranean Sea to the south of Greece and Turkey. It's got a long history of Greek civilization for over 4,000 years, And the Greek Cypriots, which I am one of, which are basically the people who live in Cyprus of Greek origin, are believed to be descendants of ancient Greeks who live in Cyprus. And there has always been a friendly kind of brotherly tie between Cyprus and Greece,
Okay, cool.
So that's the short story, I guess.
Awesome. Thank you. So then after military service, which I guess is compulsory for everybody.
Yeah, it's 2 years actually. Actually, when I did it, it was 2 years. I think now it's about 1 year. So when you finish high school, you have to do 2 years of army before you do anything else. Sure.
That's pretty common.
Otherwise you end up in jail.
That's common in a lot of countries though. I mean, we don't realize that here. It's like, it's not uncommon. Like I know in Israel they do it. A lot of countries do that.
Yeah. It's very cool.
So then you moved to London. What made you do that? And you were originally studying engineering. So what was that all about?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's about as honest an answer as you can give me, brother.
What was I doing? No, I mean, I've always loved London since I was really young. We've been here with my parents on holiday a few times. The first time I was 5 years old in the 70s. in the Greek culture, being a musician is not very well respected or valued, and there is no music scene in Cyprus. It's hard to earn a living as a musician. So back in those days, you
that's
listen
amazing.
to what your
Wait.
parents.
That's amazing when you said it's not respected, because like when I think of like I went to high school and like loads of Greeks, and like we talked about many times, New York City's got tons of Greek population.
Sure.
The first thing you think of is, it's kind of like Latin culture is like parties, dancing, singing. That's so common. And I'm surprised to hear that being a musician is not that respected.
I guess, as a hobby is respected. It's considered like a nice skill to do. But,
Gotcha.
mostly in Cyprus or in Greece, if you're playing music, you're working late, in clubs and stuff like that. It's not like the rest of Europe or the States where, you get to work with credible artists and, you get to tour, or you do recording sessions, you write. I mean, nowadays with music, you can write from anywhere, but I'm talking about, in the late 80s, early 90s, it was very limited in terms of what you could do with music and earn a living over there.
Interesting. So you're saying you always went to London when you were a kid with your parents and you had a good time?
Yeah. And, I guess my parents had, they suggested maybe I should do something more secure financially and things like that. So I was quite good at sciences. So when I graduated, I moved to London and studied. I did a degree in electronic engineering and a master's in telecommunications.
Holy shit. So you got a master's and an undergraduate, and then you have a master's, and then you went to GIT. Holy shit. You're a smart dude.
Well, I don't know if I'm smart. Maybe I should have gone into music straight away, but
yeah, no, that's pretty impressive, man. So you got your undergrad in engineering, your master's in telecommunications. What were you planning on doing?
Initially, probably go back to Cyprus and work in an engineering or a telecoms firm or something like that. But, my heart was always into music, and I looked into ways of pursuing music further. I looked into going to Berkeley or GIT. At the time, Berkeley was not affordable. It still isn't affordable, but it's even more now.
Yeah.
So, I was reading about GIT in like Guitar Player magazine and all that. So I mailed them a request for a brochure. And I got the brochure. I was really excited, about what it offered and all that. So I did a little demo on my 4-track at home. I had some backing tracks like Surfing with the Alien and a couple of Gary Moore tracks and things like that. So
wow.
I played lead guitar over that. And I sent it to GIT, and not thinking anything of it, with an application form. And a few weeks later, I got an acceptance letter, and I was really happy.
So now, did your folks know what was going on with all this the whole time?
Not until I got accepted.
Good for you, man. So how did they? I'm assuming they were supportive.
They were supportive. I have no complaints about that. But obviously, they would have preferred me to move back and work as an engineer and have a quiet and normal life, if that makes sense.
Whatever that is.
Yeah, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So then you moved out to California.
I did, yeah. It was a bit scary moving to LA,
Yeah.
Even though I lived in London on my own for a few years prior to that. I remember moving there. I booked a cheap motel in Hollywood for a week. How
did that go?
Well, I'm still alive, so
yeah, that's wild.
I went like looking for accommodation, and I found accommodation, and it was fine. After that, I made lots of friends in the school, and it was great.
That's cool. I give you a lot of credit to do that, man. That's a big move to move. It's one thing to move to London because you'd been there a bunch, and it's like, how far is London from Cyprus by plane? An hour and a half?
4.5, 5 hours.
Oh, it's that far. It's quite a ways.
Yeah, I think it's 4.5 to go and 5 to come back, or the other way around. Yeah.
Yeah, but so that means from Cyprus to California has got to be like, what, 14 hours?
Yeah, well, I flew from London because I was already in London. It's 11 hours from London, LA, nonstop.
Yeah, because it's about 8 hours here.
Mm.
Wow. Very cool, man.
Yeah, it was an eye-opening experience, both musically and, doing something on my own completely, in a new place that I hadn't been to before.
Did you have like a lot of mixed emotions? Like, oh my God, I just got all this degree in engineering and telecom. And I like what you had to make a bit of a leap of faith to do that, to go.
I did, I mean, don't get me wrong. I did have, a few doubts initially, and I was thinking, what am I going to do after I finish from GIT and all that? But, my gut feeling was telling me, keep doing what you're doing and you're on the right path. It was, it was an interesting journey, but I wouldn't change anything.
That's great, man. Good story. But when you finished MI, you went back to London. Did you think at all of staying in the States?
I did. But, after a year when the course had finished, I did think about staying a bit longer, but, getting a visa was a problem, and I didn't want to live under the radar and struggle to make a living in secret. And I definitely didn't want to get married. Stay there.
I hear that.
So, I've always liked London, and it felt like home to me. So I chose to move back.
Yeah. So it was really a no-brainer decision.
It's, I heard you talk about this in another interview about the sliding doors thing. What would have happened if I had stayed and all that? But, who knows? Who
knows, right? I know.
Yeah.
Well, no, but I understand with the visa and stuff. It's pretty difficult and expensive and complicated, and to live like with the threat of holy shit, I can't work. I got to get. That's not a really enjoyable way to live your life, man. So I totally.
And I had some friends who were staying there after they finished, and they were working kind of under the radar. But then, when you start working with an artist who is quite known, and your name starts getting around, you can't really keep it a secret. Then you get found out. I had a couple of friends who got deported,
Holy shit, back to...
Well, wherever they were from. I mean, one of them was from South America. The other one was from, I think from Europe. I can't remember.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah.
So, let me ask you this. You then... I mean, you had a very broad and pretty intense amount of training at MI.
Yeah.
But then when you went back to London, you wanted more training. And you chose London College of Music. So what made you pick London College of Music, and why'd you get more training? What were you looking for?
I guess coming from an academic background, having studied, engineering, I thought a little bit in practical terms, that it's good to have a music qualification if I want to have a career as a musician, because I might have to teach at some point, and some academic institutions, they do require you to have a degree in music. So I felt that getting a degree in music would give me that qualification, even though, as you probably know very well, that does not necessarily mean that someone is better qualified as a musician if they have a degree. But
yeah, but it gives you, it might open a door financially that would not otherwise be available.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, I chose the London College of Music.
So let me ask you this, because I have the same kind of makeup. So I graduated, I was an accountant, a CPA, and I'm really so you have left and right brain. So obviously as an engineer, it's very meticulous, detailed, precise, same thing, telecommunications, but also engineers tend to be very analytical. Right?
Yeah.
Then you got the other side of your brain going where you're extremely creative, you write, you produce, and you're a musician, and you're a really good musician, and you play guitar really well, and you're great solos. So how do you ever I know me, sometimes I'll have a decision to make, and I have a crossroads, okay, there's two ways I can make this decision. I can analyze it, or I can take the creative approach. Do you ever have that? And how do you resolve that? What do you usually go with?
That's a great question. I guess initially when I was kind of more fresh out of engineering, maybe I was using more that side of the brain, but the more I tend to go away from that and go into music and work in music for a number of years, maybe the creative side of the brain takes over. And but But there are some situations, depending on the work that you get, that it's very helpful if you do use the more kind of practical side of your brain. If you're working with an artist or if you're part of a house band and you have 30 songs to learn, it's easier to structure your learning or your practice time in such a way to make it more efficient. And I guess that's where the kind of practical side of practicing comes into the picture. I guess when it comes to writing music and creating, maybe that is not that helpful, I would say, in my opinion.
That's interesting.
Because you tend to overanalyze and overthink things that sometimes that has the opposite effect of being creative,
Yeah. Well, also engineers in particular tend to be extremely they don't want to make a decision unless they've analyzed, 300 ways the possibility of, the outcome and the probability and the likelihood. So I was just curious because that's an interesting sort of dilemma, which is a good problem to have, to be honest with you.
Yeah. It's a good problem to have. Sometimes it can be a bit annoying for myself and for others around me, but so my wife tells me, but
yeah, as I've gotten older, I just go with my gut all the time. I never think about, I just go with my gut, what to do. And because that makes me happy and it's least stressful. So, but
there is a reason why it's called trust your gut, isn't it? It's something that comes from within there. It's just what feels right and natural to you.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. And I try to make almost every decision based on that and, then go with whatever happens, but I try to make the decision based on that. Because I think you know in your heart what's the right thing to do for most things.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you're right.
Okay. After London College of Music, I'm sure there was a bunch of steps along the way, but how'd you get the gig and also become the MD of Shalamar? And, I didn't know. I always thought Shalamar was an English band. I didn't know they were American even until I did the research.
They are American.
Yeah,
actually.
I didn't know that. Yeah. For some reason, I always thought they were an English band.
No, well, they were created by Dick Griffey, who is the founder of Solar Records. He had bands like the Whispers on the label and all that. And it came out of the program. Do you remember the program Soul Train in the 70s?
Of course. With Don Cornelius.
Don Cornelius and Dick Griffey were the two, the founders of Solar Records, and they put Dick Griffey put Shalamar together. And the 2 out of 3 members of Shalamar, the original members, Jody Wadley and Jeffrey Daniel, were on the Soul Train show. They were dancers on the Soul Train show.
Peace, Love, and Soul Train, right?
That's it was. But yeah, I mean, they do come over in the UK for quite a couple of times a year. We have quite a few shows, over the year. So there is a big fan base here, definitely.
So how'd you wind up getting hooked up with them? Like, take me through after you got out of school. What happens then? So you're fresh out of college, and now you got your master's in music. You got all your shit, and so what the hell comes next?
Well, bear in mind, when I graduated, I wasn't earning any money, so I had a part-time job in an engineering office to earn some extra money.
Good for you.
I was playing in various cover top 40 bands with people I studied with. And I also tried to get some teaching gigs by contacting various, schools. And I started teaching a little bit more, and I was able to give up my engineering job. And I always, I started writing my own music since I was studying my degree. And I put an EP together with instrumental guitar music. And I thought, how can I market this, And I remember going to HMV and Tower Records and looking at which labels were releasing albums similar style to what I was doing and, making a note and getting their contacts. And then I got the Musicians Union book with contact details. So I was very naive, I was out of college. I pressed 500 CDs of this EP and I started mailing it out with a covering letter to whoever I thought might be
that's
interested.
Awesome. That's so ambitious. That's great.
I didn't know anything else, so I thought, what's the worst that can happen, you know?
No, but you were smart because you went and you looked at, okay, which record labels are issuing similar music. That's where that was very clever from a marketing standpoint. A lot of people wouldn't have done that. You did that inherently without like marketing training. I'm assuming that's pretty clever.
Oh, thank you. I followed this up with phone calls, and the response was quite low, to be honest.
Hey, let me clue you in on something. In sales in general, the response is always quite low.
Okay.
Yeah, it's always low. You just have to keep banging them out, and that's just the way.
Be persistent.
Yeah, you just you can't be dissuaded by a no.
I guess so. One of the replies was from Jazz FM Records. It was a part of the radio station, Jazz FM. And they sent me a licensing agreement straight away. And I thought, what's going on? And funny enough, I received that on April the 1st, April Fool's Day.
They have April Fool's Day in London?
Yeah.
In England?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. It's funny. I thought someone was playing a joke on me. So I thought maybe I should call them and make sure this is genuine, And I ended up speaking to a guy called Steve Quirk, who was the director of music at the station at the time. He's a great guy and very passionate about music. We are still very good friends to this day.
That's cool.
And Steve was very complimentary of my music. He said that, he personally chose one of the tracks and would like to include it on the next Jazz FM compilation album. And, I was over the moon. It's like, really?
Yeah, your first thing, man.
Yeah. Bear in mind, I did that EP on my own, on my old Mac. I recorded all the guitars. I played keys. I sequenced everything else. It was that kind of smooth jazz, soul, R&B style that was popular in the late 90s, early 2000s around here. So a lot of the music was being made like that. But, the guitars were live and all that. So, and I couldn't believe that, I had no manager, no agent, nothing. I was just,
Dude, hold on a minute. That is so fucking cool. Seriously. I mean, honestly, I hate when people bitch and complain about what they can't do. I mean, that is so cool that you did that. I mean, you made it yourself. Everybody listen to this, please. Even if nothing came out of that, the experience that you would have gained from doing that would have taught you so much. But in reality, something did come out of it. That is so awesome. You picked up the phone, you made the phone calls. That's great. And that's not an easy process because I've done that many, many times. And I've been in sales 30 something years probably, so I mean that's what it's like when you do projects. You start with zero and that's so cool, man. I really have that's really cool. I give you a lot of credit for that.
Thank you, Craig. That gave me a boost of confidence that maybe I'm on the right path somehow. I put a band together with some friends that I studied with, and I mailed more of those CDs to venues to get some gigs on the back of that Jazz FM kind of publicity. Again, the response was quite low, and I persisted. I called the venues, I spoke to the venue managers, and I managed to book a few gigs. And, I quickly wrote some charts for my songs for the band and, booked a couple of rehearsals. And, we were gigging for 2-3 years on and off, while still doing top 40 gigs and teaching. A few years later, the smooth jazz scene started dying out. So I ended up doing more of the top 40 stuff with various bands. And I continued to teach and write instrumental tracks, which in hindsight helped me develop the music licensing side of my career later on.
See that, man? I mean, nothing's ever wasted,
No, everything is an opportunity,
And it leads you to something else. It's only when you do nothing.
Yeah,
that's the only time it's wasted, man. And that's so cool, man. But look how you were hustling. You're playing top 40 gigs. You were teaching. You were playing your original gigs, and you're writing music. That's a lot of shit to be doing, and then coordinating everything and booking gigs. It
was tough. I mean, certain times I would be doing more of one and less of the other, but it kind of all seemed to kind of work together for a few years, which I'm fortunate to have been in that situation,
But that's what it takes to become successful. People often think it's like, I don't know, there's a myth out there that people think it's easy. Like you just, you didn't have the guy knock on your door. Nobody knocks on your door ever.
No, definitely not.
You're the one that, no matter what you're doing in business and music, and you got to do the door knocking, man. Otherwise, shit doesn't happen. That's so cool, man. It's such a good story.
Thank you, Craig.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, to answer your question, going back to the link with Shalamar, I started hanging out at jam nights in London and meeting musicians. There was a club in London called the Ten Rooms in the late 90s, early 2000s, which hosted a very popular night on every Monday. And I got to meet the guitarist in the house band, a very good friend of mine called Luca Campanere. He's from Italy. We became very good friends, and Luca was busy touring with various pop artists every now and then, and he would ask me to sub for him in the house band when he was on the road. It was a very popular night, and we had many UK and US touring artists come down and hang when they were in town. We had people like Lionel Richie, Shaka Khan, Joe Stone, Amy Winehouse. They would
some big names, man.
Yeah, and they would get up and sing with us every now and then, and we had to be prepared and know some of their songs. If we knew there was a possibility they would come down. I remember the first gig I got, I went to the MD's house, and just to get some information, it was the following week. And he opens the door and he gives me a stack of CDs. It must have been about 10 or 20 CDs. And he goes, "These are the songs you need to prepare for the gig." And bear in mind, I had a few days.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, he goes, "Oh, we don't have a fixed set list. We call tunes as we go." It was scary, but I went home and started listening and making notes, and that experience taught me a lot as well. How to work out guitar parts, develop my ears, how to learn things quickly, think on my feet. And through that gig, I ended up getting booked for various other pop gigs and met many musicians, and it's expanded my circle.
Man, do you realize like every single thing you've done led to something else? Just going down to that club and going on that Monday night, now you met this guy. Then he started asking you to. So, I mean, it's like, I hope everybody listening to this is just focusing on this stuff. Just do something, man. I mean, seriously. I mean, you just got to do a bunch of stuff, which is what you did, and this is really good. And you know what? I've learned a lot from listening to you guys, because I'll be much more, I'm much more open to meeting people and listening to things now, having been inspired by all the players like you that I've met, because I now have a different attitude about it, that, I need to do this. And it always happens. I meet this guy and it takes me down this road and gives me this connection, and I get to have another guy on the show. So, this is so cool, man. I'm sorry to keep interrupting you. This is just so awesome.
No, it's cool.
I just think it's so cool, man.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I'm going around and running circles. I'm coming back to the
Shalamar. It's me. I'm sorry, man.
And through that gig, I met Jeffrey Daniel, who is 1/3 of Shalamar. At the time, Jeffrey was living in the UK. He's from LA, but he was living in the UK at the time, working on his solo project. And he got up and sang with us. We played the song "A Night to Remember," which is Shalamar's biggest hit. And after the show, he was, we had a chat, and he was very complimentary of my playing. He said he was putting a band together and asked me to be his guitar player. He's a wonderful human being and a pure soul. We are very good friends to this day, and I respect him greatly. Not many people know this, but he worked closely with Michael Jackson back in the 80s and choreographed 2 of his music videos.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's actually the person who taught Michael Jackson how to do the moonwalk.
Get out of here. Seriously?
I swear, yeah, you can look it up. Jeffrey Daniel, it's either the moonwalk, or he used to call it the backslide.
That's so cool.
So, there is a lot of history there. I was working with Jeffrey for a few years, and then a few years later, when Shalamar regrouped, their management contacted me from Los Angeles after a recommendation from Jeffrey and asked me to be the musical director and put there. And that was around, I think, 2007 or something, or 2008, and I've been working with them since.
That's so cool, man. That's awesome. I'm really happy for you, man. You always connect with people like on a deep level, man. I like that about you, because there's no, like, you describe people, this guy's a deep soul and he's a good, that I like that, man. Have you always liked that your whole life?
I try to be. I mean, I always, I tend to gravitate towards people who are, I get on with and I click. And, obviously no one gets on with everyone, but
of course,
it's just, maybe I've been fortunate to meet people in my career that I've, just got along, and, I find them to be a really wonderful human beings,
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, but you seem like you and just like us, we got along really good, like boom, right away, and
Sure.
like, yeah. I'm kind of like that. I don't want to talk about the fish on the wall. Do you know that expression?
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about the fish.
Is that the same as the elephant in the room, or the fish on the wall?
No, the elephant in the room I want to talk about. That's what I want to. Yeah.
Okay.
The elephant in the room is the fish on the wall is okay. So they used to talk about, like, when I started in business, right? Back in, when I graduated college 100 years ago, it was like 1986. And it was real funny. They say, so you want to establish rapport with people. So like when you go in their office, you want to talk about the photos and the fish on the wall. Like a lot of guys back, they go fishing and they'd mount their fucking fish and it would be hanging on the wall. So the fish on the wall, and I've never, ever enjoyed that in my life. Wow, okay. I never, like, I always found that, for a good chunk of my life, I did not know how to have conversations. I did not know how to establish rapport with people. But I knew that was not the way. That was not the way to make it happen, and I would never do that. And I probably would seem unfriendly, but I couldn't do that because I found it so phony. I've always.
Well, you sound like a very genuine guy, and you connect with people in a very honest way. So I can imagine you wanting to speak about something just because you want to establish rapport is kind of,
It's kind of phony, and I would never be able to do. That's why I wound up working for myself. I was basically unemployable, but it's true, man. And so I've never been one to talk about that's why, like, when I started this show, I'm like, man, I'm not going to ask, do you fucking play 9s or 10s? Not that there's anything wrong with it, but let's like get deep and get to know people. That's what I enjoy, right? So why wouldn't I do what I enjoy? And hopefully there'll be a couple of people that might enjoy this as well, So, but I noticed that about you, man. That's really cool. Yeah,
thank you.
That's good, man. All right, so now you've been with them since 2007. So you've been with them like almost 12 years. 11
years.
That's awesome, man. That's wonderful. Congratulations. That's great.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks.
How'd you get into licensing music? Because you do that quite a bit. And as you said, all the writing you're doing, even if you don't put it out in a song, it goes into your catalog.
Right. Well, I mean, I've been writing and recording, as I said earlier, for many years prior to getting into the licensing side of things. So I guess that gave me a bit of experience and knowledge working in the studio, and later on using a computer for writing and production and things like that. And I was always curious about how music makes its way onto TV shows, films, commercials, and always paid attention to the background music when watching TV. So I knew there was an avenue to explore there in terms of revenue from royalties, and also I would enjoy doing it, which is the most important thing for me. So I did some research. I read a couple of books about it, and I realized that, like most things in the music business and life in general, making contacts and building relationships is essential. So, I had a lot of instrumental tracks on my hard drive that were sitting there not doing much. So, I thought, what's the worst that can happen? I put a CD sampler together, showcasing various styles that I was able to write. And I sent it out to music licensing companies and followed up with phone calls and emails.
So you did this, you
can hear a pattern here.
Yeah, man. That's great. Why not? If it worked last time, right?
And guess what? Not much came out of that initially.
Yeah.
The market was already saturated with composers. The people who had those gigs were very protective and secretive about their contacts. But, I didn't give up. And at the same time, I didn't lose faith. I kept my head down. I put in the work. I was persistent, and I believed that, something would happen eventually. And one of the first jobs I got was through a singer I met on a songwriting boot camp that I was on. And, she asked me to co-write a few tracks for a library company. And once we did that, I got in touch with them, and they showed some interest in my music. So I licensed some tracks to them and continued writing new material. They were a London-based company, that one. And, I started getting noticed a bit more, and every now and then I would be included in emails that would go out for briefs on film trailers or adverts, stuff like that. And I got some jobs. I also got some other jobs, through people that I met along the way who were either film producers working on specific projects or music supervisors. So it kind of slowly built up from there,
Now, hold on. Let me 1 second. When you meet these people, and I'm asking this question for people listening that might want to do this, when you meet film producers in this one and that one, do you like follow up with a CD, or do you just, in the context of which you meet them, you're introduced already as someone who's productive and successful at doing this?
It varies. I mean, I have friends who are film producers who I know from the gym. I meet people through, maybe bands or friends of musicians that I work with. It could be a direct kind of maybe link through another composer friend. But I always try to kind of establish a relationship with them. And, if they're looking for something, obviously I don't want to kind of be, too forward with them, because everyone has their people that they work with, and you don't want to kind of invade that, especially if you've been introduced by a friend who already works with someone. I don't like to go behind their back and, that's the last thing I want to do.
No, of course. Yeah.
So to answer your question, it varies, but if they do express an interest and an opportunity there that they're looking for music, I always have links that I can send them for music that I'm writing, and then we take it from there. Sometimes it could be a job that is specifically, I get commissioned to do something specific for, let's say, the BBC or something like that. And sometimes it's library companies where you just send them the tracks and you don't see any money until it gets used and the royalties start coming in. Because nowadays, unless you're a big name composer, it's rare to get an advance, get paid in advance before the track is being used.
In the UK, is it the 50-50 split pretty much the same as it is here for licensing?
Pretty much, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They get the publishing, you get the rights royalty, which is 100% of each is 50% of the whole thing. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
That's so cool, man.
I'll tell you a funny story about that, actually. BBC were making a documentary about fishing called Fishing Impossible. And for one of the episodes, I was asked to do a metal version of the English nursery rhyme, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, once I caught the fish alive.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know if you guys have it in the States.
No, but my wife taught it to my kids when they were growing up.
There you go. It was funny. So I recorded the backing track because it's an old nursery rhyme, so it's public domain. Anyone can use it.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't get, a lot of royalties from it, but so I recorded the backing track and delivered it, thinking that the presenter would sing it. But the producers informed me that they were expecting a finished product, with the vocal on top. So, and they wanted it yesterday, like they do everything.
Yeah.
I set up a vocal mic, if you can imagine me, and I laid down a thrash metal vocal.
Oh my!
Like stuff like that.
And they used it.
It seemed to work. They didn't complain, so yeah, they used it.
That's so funny.
It's funny, man.
Oh my God, that's great. Well, you guys have great for everybody listening that doesn't know that when he said adverts, that's commercials here in the States.
Commercials, yeah.
Yeah, but your adverts they're like epic, man. Like I remember being at my mother-in-law's house and like I'd be watching a commercial for tires. And I'm like, the thing's about 8 minutes long. And it's like, fuck, this is really like, great music. It's like a story. It's great. I mean, you guys take your adverts there. They're like next level shit. Here, it's just like literally retarded. The commercials, they're just beyond awful. I mean, they just say the name of, the car, the car, the automobile dealership 300 times, and it's just oppressive. It's like, it's like, you want to send them a bill for just sucking up your time.
They get right into maybe because advertising time is very expensive over there. I mean, it's still here. It still is here as well. But, over there to get like, a few seconds on, what is it? The Super Bowl. But how many millions is that?
Yeah, that's literally the most expensive airtime for commercials. Period. But just general like local TV at night, it's just really abusive how bad it is. But your stuff there is awesome. But you're having national TV too. We're looking at more local, but still, man, it's very very cool there, man.
It's all right. I mean, it's slow. This with the royalties and all that is slowly building up. It's about playing the long game, and slowly you start seeing more and more royalties from year to year as you write more tracks and more things are being used, on a regular basis. Yeah.
Well, I've spoken to several guys here in the States that do licensing in movies, and they said you really got to give yourself at a minimum 9 months, but more like a year plus till you start seeing some stuff. And then, like you said, the catalog builds up, and it happens over time, not overnight, basically. So but to me, I think it's crazy if anybody's not doing that, because it's mailbox money essentially. Yeah. And it's the only thing around in music today where you can get, quote, a royalty and ongoing many, many times over, and then I just found out, I interviewed, I don't know if you ever heard of this guy, Lyle Workman.
Oh yeah.
He did the soundtrack.
Yeah, he's a great guitar player.
Great guitar player, and he did the soundtrack for Superbad. He does a lot of Judd Apatow movies.
Yes, he does a lot of that. Yeah,
great. I mean, my favorite soundtrack. But I didn't realize this. I had asked him. I said, "Why would somebody like that soundtrack he wrote for Superbad? It's like a James Brown album, basically. I mean, it was just brilliant, just beyond incredible." And I said, "Why wouldn't someone have just licensed some songs?" And he said the cost to license one song is for a major movie, $300,000 to $400,000 per song.
Absolutely.
And I was like, what? And then you look at a movie like Goodfellas, which had not Can't You Hear Me Knocking, but an old classic Stones song. It had Layla from Derek and the Dominoes. God knows what they spent on that soundtrack, It's a lot.
Well, it depends who owns the publishing of those. Maybe some of these big film companies, they own the companies who own the publishing as well, so it might work out cheaper for them to do that. I mean, I don't know exactly how it works, but it depends on budgets and stuff. But yeah, I mean, on a smaller scale, we get that here as well. Sometimes you get sent a track to kind of write something in the style of that because they cannot afford to pay for the original track. And
that's amazing. So you're a 5 Grand Stereo. You're a full member of that band.
Yes.
How did you wind up hooking with them? And what are you guys looking to do next in the band? I love the music you guys make. They have everybody listening, check out the band called 5 Grand Stereo. It's Stelios's band. They have there's a great catalog, but their song "Anyone Can Be a Star" is so cool. The melody, it's very, you mentioned Bowie before we got on the interview. It's Bowie, Beatles influence, but it's a really original song. But the lyrics are great. It's a really accurate look at our crazy culture and obsession with stardom. And I want to ask you about that song in particular, but how did you wind up working with them, and what are you guys looking to do moving forward?
First of all, thank you for your comments. It's very kind of you. I've known Chris Singleton, the frontman of the band, for about 15 years. I auditioned for his solo project back in the early 2000s and ended up playing guitar in his band. And later, as I got more involved with the project, we spoke about reinventing ourselves and turning it into a band. So 5 Grand Stereo was born. And, I got more actively involved in the production, recording, and mixing of the album Sex and Money, which is our debut album. I actually mixed and mastered the album myself.
Wow.
I arranged the guitars and we recorded everything, together. So, it's still early stages. We've had some minor success in Ireland and the UK so far. We got playlisted on BBC Radio 2 and RTE Radio 1. We played some festivals in the UK and Ireland over the summer. We appeared on the Late Late Show in Ireland. There's a TV show called The Late Late Show. Funny enough, you guys have one there, right?
Yeah.
The next thing at the moment, we're looking to expand our profile beyond Ireland and the UK, and we are writing new songs for the next album as well. So we'd like to move slightly away from maybe the 70s thing while, preserving the emphasis on songwriting and melody, and so maybe take the production in a slightly different direction to experiment a bit more sonically. Just to give you an idea, the first album we recorded we wanted to have a very organic 70s sound, especially like drums, a very open sound, the drums, and also the guitars and the bass. In a couple of songs the bass was actually recorded on a home 4-track cassette
Awesome,
machine, and then bounced into Pro Tools just to give it that kind of authentic warmth,
And you did all that?
Me and Chris did all that. Yeah.
That's really cool.
It's funny. It's like a poor man's studio tape machine.
Yeah, but guess what, man? You know what's going to happen now? I guarantee it. Somebody's going to be listening to that, and they're going to say, hey, you did the mastering on that record. I got a project for you to work on. This is what happens with all the shit you do, man.
You never know. Yeah, thank you.
So did you get that? So mastering is a very detailed, extremely detailed, niche, nitpicky kind of thing.
Yeah, it's completely different from mixing. I mean, I mixed the album, but then when it comes to mastering, it's a completely different process, and you have to think, and apply different techniques and all that. So yeah, it's obviously, there are the big names, mastering engineers. They get paid the big bucks to do just that because they're so great at what they do. But when you kind of work with what you have here at the time, and we sent out the tracks to some mastering engineers here to do some test masters, and they all came back. They were okay, but I said to Chris, why don't you let me do a test master? And we compared them, and we thought, maybe it doesn't make sense to pay extra money to have something mastered and not sound like we wanted to. So I ended up doing the mastering, and seemed to work. So
that's all. Yeah, it worked great, man. It sounds wonderful.
Thank you.
So let me ask this now. How do you go about like coming into the States? I'm assuming that's part of what you want to do. It's a really arrogant thing to say, but I know you said you want to get past England and Ireland. Maybe you want to go to Cyprus. Who the hell knows? I shouldn't be so presumptuous, but I'm assuming you want to come.
I'm not sure now it's very safe there with the water starting up and all that. But
we're huge, and no, it's funny. I get these. This is like I'm on these services, and I get these things they send to me every day, like the rankings of the show, and like, congratulations, you're a number 5 in music in Nepal.
Oh wow! Okay.
And I'm like,
That's
yeah,
amazing.
I'm deep in the streets, and and like Iceland, and off places that normally don't come into daily conversation or my thoughts even.
That's great, man. That you have listeners all over the world. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, you're doing a great job, so I don't see why not.
Thanks, man. It's not me; it's my guests. I'm the same dude every time. But so where do you guys want to go next? Do you want to go to the States? Do you want to go
We'd love to go to the States, yeah, and expand our profile beyond Ireland, the UK, and for people to listen to our music and to our album. And yeah, we'd love to be able to do that. But it's just getting, I guess, we need an agent or a manager over there who's gonna kind of get us on some festivals or shows.
Are you on a label? Or is it self?
We are on, it's kind of our own label, Brown Paper Records, which is the a label that Chris put together.
So, man, what if you do the same formula? You just mail out copies of the CD, send them priority mail to head, label execs, is that something that makes any sense to do, or is that not really how
it does make sense? Yeah. I mean, it's something I need to sit down with Chris and work things out and see how we can make this happen, because from what I see, I mean, it's a completely different market there as well. And, because of the logistics and all that, it's not as simple as getting the ferry or getting a 1 hour flight and going over to Ireland and doing a festival. So
no, it's not.
There's a lot more things to consider,
Yeah, and I know a couple of guys. Well, I obviously know a bunch of guys now in England and in Ireland, and they're trying to come over here. And a couple of them have said to me, "Hey, some guy said to us he wants to bring us there, and what do you think?" And I'm like, I don't really know that I'm not qualified,
right,
to answer.
Well, the visa alone costs quite a bit of money, and imagine having to bring X amount of musicians as well, and then having to pay for accommodation and all that. So it's, unless you have an investor or someone who's going to put money behind this, it's not financially, it's a bit difficult to kind of make it happen with zero budget.
And that's exactly what I told him. I said, listen, I'm not qualified to give you an opinion on who this guy is or not, but in my opinion, unless you got someone backing you,
exactly,
make sure that it's easy for someone to say, hey, I'm going to put you on a festival. Who's paying for it?
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, okay, just turn up on this day in this date, or just play this. It's like, how do we get there? Who's
right? Where are you going to stay? Who's going to pay for the hotel? And I mean, as long if it's you, as long as they're telling you it's you, fine. But like, make sure that's ironed out ahead of time, because everybody's quick to make a promise, not necessarily quick to back it up with money. That's just the way it is.
For sure.
Okay, I want to ask you just one question about that song, "Anyone Can Be a Star," because I just love it. At the end of that song, it's a real upbeat, very positive song. It's a easy song to listen to, easy song to sing and dance to, right? But at the end, I think there's like 4 chords you play, and maybe you play them 2 or 3 times in the outro. The chords were perfect, but yet they were very sad. And I was curious, 2 things. Number one, what were the changes there? Like, what were the chords, if you remember? And you have this tiny bit of distortion on them, but that little distortion really makes a massive difference than if they had been played clean or if it was heavy distortion.
Thank you, Craig. It's very kind of you to say. I'm just trying to think what I used when we recorded the album.
And what were the chords itself? Because I just like those changes, if you remember. This is a silly question to ask.
The guitar, I think, yeah. Well, I should know because we play this song live many times. Yeah, the first chord is an A. The second one is a D over A.
Right.
And then it's like a D minor over A. And then you finish with an A again.
It's really pretty, man.
It's a major to minor thing. That's what makes it quite,
It's really sad, but it's like so perfect in that right there in that spot. And I thought it was great, man. What made you do that? If that's even a question.
Chris wrote the song. Chris, the frontman, he wrote the song, and obviously the chords were there. But I guess the way I played it is something that came from me in terms of how it sounded right to me as a guitar player. And, I was thinking along the lines of this kind of 70s rock, kind of bluesy kind of thing. So that's the voicings that I kind of used. But I remember recording it. I remember double tracking the guitars, actually. I think on one side I used my Les Paul through my divided by 13 amp. And on the other side, I use a Telecaster through my Dr. Z amp. And I think I might have used, I think an exotic BB preamp or an OCD, a full-tone OCD for the slightly crunchy kind of, to give it that kind of push.
It was perfect,
and
man.
Double-tracked them and added a bit of delay and ambient reverb, in the mix, basically. It's simple, just one pedal into the amp. Yeah, it wasn't anything flashy, but it seemed to work for that kind of
you know what, man, there's a lot of brain power that goes into like just that little bit right there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought it was just great, man. I really enjoyed that whole song. And I just kept listening to the end. It was just like perfect, man. So thank you for making that.
Thank you, Craig.
Musically, you've done so much. Is it possible to maybe come up with a top 3 for like what your favorite music experiences have been?
Okay. I'll try and narrow it down to 3. I mean, obviously, the Shalamar, working as the musical director for Shalamar, a band with 4 decades of musical history and iconic hits, in the soul, funk, R&B genre, it's very, it's a highlight, because I'm the musical director, we have to kind of think about the live arrangements and make them interesting while staying close and true to the original parts as well. And sounds. There's a fine line. I don't want to. You see a lot of bands changing the songs completely for the live kind of element, but I believe that the fans come to hear the music that they remember from the records. And sometimes the way these records were recorded, speaking to Jeffrey, who was there at the time, we think that it's just simply just recording something and it's easy. But those guys knew exactly what they were doing back then, and the session guys who recorded those parts. So, we tried to get as close to the original parts as possible whilst injecting a bit of the live kind of element, to spice them up a little bit, to give the fans something extra. I guess the second one would be maybe working on the X Factor tour, which was my first big tour. I did a few years of that. We played all the big arenas in the UK, and I got to experience how it is to be part of a big live show, with pyrotechnics, with stage props, with dancers, with big lights. I got to work with a lot of up-and-coming artists like, One Direction, who were just starting out at the time, and, they ended up going on to become, big,
Yeah.
This tour also led me to work with many other pop artists as it raised my profile. And I established very good relationships with the band members, Richard Taylor, the musical director, and Simon Mary, a great drummer as well. We are still friends to this day. And, that was a really, really, really good experience for me.
That's awesome.
My relationship with Jason Donovan, I don't know if you guys know who he's in the States. Maybe your wife might be familiar with him. He had many big hits in Europe here in the 80s. And, he's still touring, working. I've been his guitar player for 11 years now.
Wow, man, you are long. You're like, you don't dick around. You're long term with everybody. That's great. No, seriously. I mean, that's unusual. You know that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really cool. That says a lot about your value and, strength.
It's, I enjoy establishing relationships and working with people long term. I like loyalty, and I give loyalty, and I like, I appreciate it when people give it back.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
I have a great relationship with him and the band. Sean Barry, who is a musical director, is a great friend of mine. But what I love about this gig is the very nature. Sometimes we do full band gigs, and at the moment I'm on tour with him. He's doing a different tour, which is just acoustic, me and him.
That's
and
cool.
2 vocals. Just me and him on vocals and guitars. And we basically do acoustic arrangements of his big hits, which is, it's quite a challenge to make them interesting because his original music was very electronic based in the 80s. So to make the transition and the arrangements sound interesting on acoustic guitar is something that I enjoy doing, as well.
And it's Jason Donovan?
Jason Donovan.
Yeah, I'll have to ask Ann if she knows him. She probably does, because we're not like, that's more like the dance music, less kind of the stuff she listens to. We're not like musically like compatible, to be honest with you.
He was part of a big Hit Factory kind of team, in the 80s. Stock Aitken and Waterman. There were three guys who produced a lot of hit records in the 80s for a lot of artists in the UK and Europe and all that. So, they had people like Kylie Minogue, Rick Astley, Jason Donovan. They were the 3 main ones on that label. And, they had, just to give you an idea, Jason Donovan had the biggest selling album of 1989 in the UK.
Wow.
So, that's how big they were here in the UK.
That's
I
very
guess
cool.
one last thing to finish off with that question is, I've listed things that I've done with other artists, but for me, maybe it sounds a bit selfish, but the biggest and most fulfilling thing, even if it's the smallest in terms of audience, is playing my own music with my band back in the early 2000s.
That's awesome, man. I can understand that 100%. I'm glad you mentioned it. Yeah.
It's a completely different experience that you only get as an artist, and to see the response from the few people who attended and then to come and buy your CD is something special,
That is cool, man. You think you do another record?
I'd like to. It might take a while because of schedule, conflicts, and also, because you have to earn a living. The older you get, the more responsibilities you have, and you know how it is.
I do, man. Well, man, if you put one out, come back on the show. We'll promote it. We'll launch it here if you want.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Cyprus, you grew up there. What was your childhood like growing up there? And also, maybe you can share some of the bigger cultural or behavioral and customs differences between Cyprus and either the US or the UK.
Sure. Well, I had a great childhood growing up, great parents and friends, it's always, I don't remember anything bad, they were really happy times. And I guess the differences are when it comes to cuisine, family ties are a lot closer. People are more relaxed. They like to have their coffee in the afternoon, go to the beach,
Much more balanced, I'm sure.
They don't like to work that hard.
Yeah, but the amount of is England as bad as the States? Like here, it's mental how much.
Man, I'll tell you, it's not far off. Especially London and New York, I think they're on par. Especially with the house prices and the, everything. It's kind of the financial capital of Europe, probably until Brexit happens, and then God knows what's going to happen after that.
So the cuisine,
the cuisine. And
what's your favorite food? What food do you miss the most?
Well, I don't eat meat anymore. I used to love, like grilled chicken or souvlaki and things like that.
Yeah, man.
But I don't eat.
You're a vegetarian?
Meat anymore. I eat fish.
Cool.
And I try to avoid meat and dairy. Yeah. I avoid meat completely. I try to avoid dairy as well.
I avoid dairy completely, and I do eat meat. Yeah, not often, but I do eat it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole other topic. Maybe you should do a different podcast for that.
Oh God, yeah, because I need more work. Yeah, for sure, man. I need more podcasts. Okay, so what's your favorite UK food?
Oh good.
Maybe nothing. Vegetarian curry.
Honest, London has some really great restaurants because it's so multicultural.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You can get any cuisine you want here. You can get it, and the quality is pretty good. You know. I love Indian food. Obviously that's not British food.
Do you eat beans on toast?
Yeah, I do actually.
Do you?
Actually,
do you know my wife still eats beans on toast? Like, I remember when I first met her, I thought it was like, wow, this is really cool. And then I realized it was like wartime rations is what it really probably was. But it's good stuff.
It's comfort food in the afternoon on a cold day. It's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Jacket potato with beans.
I love my afternoon snack is, jacket potato with beans and tuna sometimes.
Yeah. That's so
Fish
funny.
and chips.
Yeah.
If it's cooked well.
Oh man. That's great.
Yeah.
Are your folks still over there? Are they still in Cyprus or are they in London or?
They are in Cyprus. Yeah. No, they're in Cyprus. They've lived there all their lives, you know.
How do you get to see them often?
I go over a couple of times a year, you know, now that they're getting on a bit and my mom is not very well. I try to make an effort to go and see them more often.
That's great. I'm sure they're proud as hell of you now. Yeah, I think they are. Yeah, that's got to be nice and rewarding for them and for you, no? Yes. I know that, you know, sometimes, you know, my dad, he wished I had moved back and, you know, be closer to them. But I think they understand now. I'm married here. I have my life here now. So it's kind of, Is your wife English or is she from Cyprus as well? No, she's British. She was born here, but her parents are from Mauritius. Oh, okay. So she's
she's of Indian origin, but she's a London girl.
Very cool. Yeah, well, I know ethnic families, it's very important for them to stay. So it probably was tough for them to you not to be close to them. It's almost like sacrilege in the beginning, probably, like how could you not? But, it's the world we live in today, man. It's just a little bit different,
I know it makes it harder because I'm an only child as well. I don't have brothers and sisters, so there's no one there to look after them apart from relatives and family and stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah. Man, I hope my kids will be thinking that one day. I need to look after my dad. Fuck, I don't know if that'll happen. I hope so. Like one of them, I think will for sure, but I don't know about the other two. What kind of work did your dad do when you were growing up?
My dad worked for the British Army bases in Cyprus. Because Cyprus used to be a British colony, so when the British gave Cyprus its independence back, they kept their British bases there, the army bases. And my dad was, he worked for them all his life pretty much, from the time he was 18 until he retired.
Oh, wow. That's rare. You don't see that much anymore.
Yeah, both of my parents, they had one job for the whole of their careers.
Really? What did your mom do?
She was a primary school teacher and headmistress.
A headmistress. I love that word.
Well, she retired as a headmistress because obviously, you start from a lower kind of scale and then you go up, and then she got promoted to a headmistress the last 10, 15 years of her life, her career.
Her career. Is that like a headmaster? Except it's a woman, right? That song by the Smiths, The Headmaster's Ritual? I always love that. It's just that word. We don't have that word here. Headmaster, headmistress.
So what do you call the head of a school?
Principal.
Principal. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. There principal. Then they have an assistant principal, and but I love that word, the headmaster.
That's the equivalent, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. The headmistress. That's cool.
Yeah.
What were some of the lower points or some of the obstacles, the biggest obstacles you had to deal with over your career, and how did you get through them? Either personal, music related, or business related?
That's a good question, actually. I can't really say there were any low points like that they were detrimental to my career. Maybe thinking back, maybe not getting a response when mailing out all those CDs was a bit of a low point at the time. But, in hindsight, considering how naive I was, it was to be expected.
Yeah.
And maybe it was tough moving to LA on my own. It was hard in the first 2-3 weeks until I settled and started making friends,
You seem to be such an optimistic person. I don't even know if you could process a low point. And I don't mean that, let me qualify. I don't think you're the guy. I think you'd figure out some way you're a glass half full guy.
I tried
by
to
nature,
be.
I think.
I tried to be, yes. I tried to see the positives in most things.
Yeah.
It's not always easy, but yeah.
No, it's definitely not, but that's cool, man.
Thank you.
Any advice that you would have gone back and given younger Stelios?
Be patient, be persistent, keep showing up.
Which you did all those things.
I did, yeah. Be over prepared. When you show up at gigs it's better to know more songs that you're supposed to rather than not know enough, Yeah. Don't cut corners.
Yeah, but you didn't do any of these things.
I didn't know.
No. So, you're very smart like that. How did that happen?
I don't know if I was smart. Maybe I was just being more cautious in terms of with my decisions. Maybe it took longer to get there because of my nature, because of the way I am. I'd rather walk a bit slower and get there rather than try and run and trip.
God, that's so I wish I had been like that when I was younger. I think that's so smart.
But I'm sure you've learned from things that you've done.
Yeah,
and
of course.
So I think there are pros in both approaches, because sometimes you go a bit faster and then things happen for you, doors open, and maybe, I guess, going back to this question, maybe advice would be take more risks when you're a bit younger. Because maybe I didn't take enough risks.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I've done both things, and it's much less stress if you are able to just say, I'm going to do this, and whatever's meant to be,
right,
will happen.
Mm-hmm.
And as opposed to just killing yourself, because you got to kill yourself anyway. Nothing's easy. No, seriously, right?
Yeah.
No, nothing's easy. I mean, you're going to have to work your ass off regardless. Yeah, so you might as well do it at a pace where you could like sort of enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
And not feel so stressed.
Yeah.
That's definitely advice. Yeah, I would have given myself slow the fuck down and just, let things happen naturally, And I think you did a great job of that, and it's funny because as a consultant, I've had clients that have done both. And after watching, in consulting on marketing and projects like that, in watching the guys and the companies that were okay moving slower, but just like it always worked much better for them. And that's where I finally said, I need to be more like that, because I'm advising all these people and I'm watching them. I need to learn something from it, and it's just less stressful for me, which is most important,
It's, it's always easy to think back and say this and that, but if it's in your nature to be that way, especially when you're younger.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know how it is. No matter what anyone says, you're going to do what you're going to do anyway.
Oh yeah. pretty much. Man, just curious, what are the top 2 or 3 best concerts you've ever seen?
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah, we'll talk about music for a little bit. Imagine.
Yeah, sure. Oh, music, what is that? I remember going to Wembley Stadium to see in the early to mid 90s to see Bon Jovi, Van Halen, and there was a British band called Thunder, rock band. They were all on the same bill, and there were a couple of other bands as well, which I don't remember. But yeah, that was a great concert.
Big festival.
Bon Jovi and Van Halen and Thunder. And I remember Brian May coming on as a guest to play with Bon Jovi.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. The other one, I would say Eric Clapton, 24 Nights at the Albert Hall in the early 90s.
Yeah, I have that
CD. The double CD.
Yeah, the double CD from that, yeah.
Yeah, because it was with 3 different lineups. It was with the quartet, with an orchestra, and with the 9-piece or whatever. But yeah, it was really interesting.
And where was that again?
At the Royal Albert Hall in London. Yeah.
I'd love to see some shows there, man.
Yeah.
You guys have some great theaters.
It's a great venue. It's not necessarily the best for live, loud music, because obviously it was built many years ago before amplified music. So it's got a very high ceiling. So the sound just goes up, and they put these kind of big mushrooms on top to kind of try and dampen the sound. But it's still, it's an iconic venue. It's great to watch a concert in there. I guess another one would be Bryan Adams. It was my first concert in the UK. I'm a big Bryan Adams fan. I love the Reckless album from the 80s.
Sure.
The first couple of albums were his favorite for me. My favorite for my favorites. I think Keith Scott, his guitarist, is a great player, very tasty and great guitar parts, and the songwriting is great. So that concert, I really enjoyed it because I was a big fan already from the 80s in Cyprus. I had the album on vinyl, and then moving here to study in the UK, like 1 or 2 months after, he was playing at Wembley Arena.
That's great, man.
Yeah. I would say those 3, yeah.
Very good shows, man. Hey, let's talk about gear for a couple of minutes.
Okay.
What's your go-to guitar, and what other 2 might round out your top 3?
I think the one I use the most, which is my go-to, especially for live stuff, is my Tom Anderson Hollow Drop Top.
That's the red one?
Yeah.
It's a pretty guitar, man.
It's this one here.
Yeah. Okay, so it's got a rosewood. Is that rosewood or ebony neck? Can't see it.
It's rosewood neck.
Yeah. What kind of...
rosewood fingerboard with maple back neck. And it's the top is maple, the body. And it's got basswood on the bottom, the back. So it's maple on basswood.
So it's an HSS. So it's a humbucker and 2 single coils. What kind of pick... Are those Tom Anderson pickups, or you put something else in there?
No, they are the original pickups, actually. I bought this guitar secondhand, actually, in the early 2000s. And I mean, for me, it's a Swiss Army knife guitar. It just seems to do most things really well. It's got the humbucker, the rock thing. It does the rock thing really well. You get the really nice stratty kind of sounds on positions, 2 and 4, and then the neck pickup sounds great. It's got a pull switch, the tone switch pulls, which adds the bridge pickup to the neck pickup, so you can get a kind of, it's not exactly a Telecaster sound, but if you want to get away with kind of getting close with that, you can even get a Telecaster sound with that guitar as well.
Very cool. Yeah, he has the steel frets on there. I love those.
Yeah, stainless steel frets.
Yeah,
they're great.
So much easier to play, man.
And the neck is just like butter. It's a great neck, that guitar. I've had a few Andersons over the years. This is my favorite one. I've got another one, a classic, which is like a traditional Strat with 3 single coils and vintage pickups. But this one seems to work best for me live, and yeah.
Is Tom Anderson popular over in the UK? Is there a lot of Tom Anderson guitars?
I don't see that many, actually.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
No.
I don't think so.
They're quite pricey here, so I don't see a lot of people playing them. When I bought this, I mean, I paid a really good price for it. Now, like boutique guitar market, the prices are over the roof. I mean, I know they make some great guitars, all of these companies, and deservedly they are expensive because everything goes up in price.
Sure.
It's difficult for people to afford guitars, that cost $2, $3, $4, $5 grand.
Yeah, sounds like you need a trip to the States to go to guitar shopping.
Oh, yes. Need to do my research.
Yeah, man. So what other 2 guitars would be your top 3?
The other guitar I love, which again I bought secondhand, is my Fano JM6, which is like a.
Oh yeah, you know what? They're nice people, man. I'm actually talking to them about potentially coming on the show to do some advertising. They're very nice people.
They are lovely guitars. This is a 2004 model from the Dennis Fano era before he left the company. But they still make great guitars, even today.
So that kind of like the body is almost like a Jazzmaster.
It's like a Jazzmaster, yeah. But it's all Corina. The body is Corina.
Is that light?
I wouldn't say it's light. It's not heavy. It's kind of medium weight. It's a bit like the Anderson. But it's got Lolar pickups, Lolar Imperial pickups, which sound great.
I love the covers on those pickups. They were like very vintage looking.
Yeah, it's got a slight relicking on it as well.
Yeah.
Which
cool.
It's probably good because you don't worry about getting dents on it and stuff like that.
It's a nice guitar, man. I don't usually like wood guitars, but I like that one. It looks cool, man.
It sounds great acoustic as well. It's just, it's got this woody tone, and then those pickups just go really well with that.
Did they put those pickups in, or did you buy those afterwards?
No, they came with the guitar. I mean, Dennis Fano, when he built these guitars, I think he used Fralin P90s, and for humbuckers he used Lolar pickups.
Yeah.
In general, I mean, unless it was a custom order where the client wants something different. But yeah, they're great guitars. How's
the neck on that? Is it fat or is it regular, thin, or?
It's regular. Yeah. It's regular, really good, really comfortable to play. It's not too chunky. I don't like very chunky necks, but at the same time, I don't like them too thin. It's something in the middle.
Your hands are gigantic. Are you tall? Because your hands are gigantic.
I'm 6 foot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got skinny and long fingers.
Oh, your fingers are gigantic, man. It's like two of my fingers. one of your fingers. I just got average hands. I'm the average size guy, man. And then what would be number 3?
Number 3, it varies depending on what I'm doing, but I would say my PRS, the Dave Grissom model, DGT, is a great guitar, very versatile, and it's got great pickups. I use that quite a lot. It records great, that guitar. It's good, because it's got a split coil as well, so you get really nice Les Paul, and you get some really nice Telecaster type sounds as well. It's funny, I was reading this thing about Paul Reed Smith, and they were talking about the Dave Grissom model and how great the pickups are. and someone asked him if they could buy the pickups on their own, and he said something along the lines of, "Yeah, you get a free guitar when you buy the pickups."
I think that's their top selling guitar, and everybody that has that,
Is it?
Yeah, I believe that's their top selling guitar, and like everybody that I've spoken to who has that always mentions that guitar in their top. I mean, they love it. And
funny, a couple of friends here in the UK, Rob Harris, who you interviewed.
Oh, Rob's great. Yeah.
Matt Pryor as well. They've got the DGT model. They both love those guitars. Yeah.
Matt's coming on the show in like a week or two.
Great. Yeah, I look forward to hearing it. Ask him about how many amps and pedals and guitars he's got.
Oh, I saw his studio, man. It was nuts. I saw that, man. We were talking. And funny enough, Grissom's episode on my show is one of the most popular shows.
I love that episode. I remember listening to it, driving home from a gig, and it was, great,
Thanks. Man. Thank you. Yeah, it was pretty deep. Who's your favorite guitar player?
It's difficult to narrow it down to one.
Yeah.
If I could pick a few, I guess it would be Larry Carlton, Steve Lukather, Robin Ford, Prince, Nile Rodgers. Van Halen for his swing, the swing, Van Halen swing, man. It's just, Stevie Ray Vaughan, George Benson, that kind of. I guess it's a mixture. My playing is kind of a mixture of a lot of different styles. So it's really hard to say I like one guitar player more than the other. I try to kind of, I combine from.
Well, you're super nimble as far as what you do, but I know that like the thing you're where you feel most at home is probably in that funk / R&B / blues groove.
Yeah, that comes from my GIT days. I can tell you more about that in a minute, but I love playing rhythm guitar. I mean, most of my work is rhythm guitar anyway. It's as a working guitar player, most of your work is accompanying or playing as a part of a rhythm section. So, yeah.
Well, even with your band with $5,000, it's not a guitar centric band.
It's not a big long solos or anything. If there is a solo, it's 8 bars and it's a specific solo that fits the nature of the song. It's a melodic thing that evolved, through, the writing process, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, but like to me, when you can play those 4 chords at the end of the song, and I'm sitting here remembering those 4, that's pretty freaking impressive. That's like it, you left your mark not by doing a solo, by doing something, technically incredibly simple, but not simple to execute, Anybody that influences your playing that people might be surprised to hear?
I really love, there's a guy called Paul Jackson Jr. He's a great session player. He's been active since the late 70s, early 80s. He played on Michael Jackson's Thriller and Bad. He has worked with, if you look him up on Old Music, you see all his credits. But he's a master at creating rhythm guitar parts. There's a very interesting video he did. I think you can get it on YouTube. It's called Science of Rhythm Guitar. The Science of Rhythm Guitar. There's a few clips of the video, but you can see how he creates guitar parts and how his pocket and his groove is amazing.
Paul Jackson Jr. Man, is he still around?
Yeah, he's around. I think he's based in LA. I'm not sure. Maybe. I remember seeing him when I was at GIT. I went to see him in concert with some friends. He was great. He did a solo. He does his solo thing as well, but he does sessions for a lot of artists.
Hey man, he sounds like a guy I need to get on the show, so I'm going to look him up.
Oh, he's great. I think my main influence would be my private guitar teacher and mentor at GIT, Ross Bolton, who is sadly no longer with us.
Oh, I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, he passed away about 5 years ago. I had to get on the waiting list to be one of his private students, but he was Al Jarreau's guitarist for a number of years.
He was what?
He was Al Jarreau's guitarist.
Oh, wow.
Al Jarreau, yeah. He played with him for a number of years. But at GIT, he was like the funk rhythm guitar specialist. But he was so much more than that. He was a complete guitar player, and I learned a lot from him.
That's cool.
He was very inspiring, very down-to-earth, patient with, so much knowledge. He was a great guy. I remember him always telling me tap your foot to lock in with a groove.
Yeah, but that's the kind of like that's the kind of wisdom that like may change your whole career, you know.
It did. Well, it made my timekeeping and my rhythm guitar playing so much better. You know, when you lock in with the rhythm section, with the drums and the bass, you know, and it's all kind of one like that. It's
That's awesome. That's perfect, man. Desert Island Discs.
Yeah.
No particular order, just for today, knowing they could change, 10 minutes from now. What's the first 3 albums that come to mind?
What comes to mind? Quincy Jones, The Dude. Robin Ford, Talk to Your Daughter. There's a guy called Mark Broussard. He's from Louisiana. I don't know if you're familiar with his music.
I'm not familiar with his music. I've heard his name.
I think it's his second album called Carencro, which is the town he comes from in Louisiana. It's kind of a mixture of funk, blues, R&B, rock, and pop, but the songwriting is great on that.
He's another guy. Sounds like I should look up. Mark, Broussard?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. I've heard of this guy. I need to look.
And the Mark is with a C. Mark Broussard.
Thanks.
Check out the song Rocksteady. It's got a great guitar solo by Julian Coriel, who is Larry Coriel's son.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Great. I actually did I tried to replicate that. I've got a little video on my YouTube channel from back in the day.
Where's your YouTube at? YouTube Stelios K? Look up Stelios K?
Yeah, it's Stelios K Music. Yeah.
Stelios K Music.
Yeah, yeah.
Man, what's the most important things that you've learned about yourself through life and through your career experience?
You can't please everyone. Some will like you and some won't.
That's very true, man.
But myself, I guess I can be a bit stubborn sometimes. I don't give up easily. And on a positive side, I'd like to think
that's a great trait right there.
Thank you. On a positive side, I'd like to think that I have good work ethic, and I put 110% in everything I try to do.
Man, I could tell you right now, that's even like your preparation for here, man. And you have notes on some of the questions, and it's so funny because work ethic is like how you do one thing is how you do everything. And you're like, if you have a good work ethic, you have a good work ethic in everything you do. It's like being pregnant. You can't be partially pregnant, right?
You're either pregnant or you're not.
Yeah, right. And I've found that, when you have a good work ethic, it's like, boom, you're good with whatever you do, man. And that applies, the standards and the integrity that you're putting into something. And I think it's wonderful, man. That like I said often on this show, and I'm sorry for repeating myself to the listeners, but to me, you could learn a lot about a human being by watching the work ethic, and better quality people, for the most part, always have better quality work ethics, in my observation, anyway.
Thank you, Craig.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate it.
I'm curious about this question for you. What is your definition of happiness?
It's a big word, isn't it?
It is, man.
I guess to be at peace with yourself and your thoughts. To have good friends and family in your life. And I'd say to be able to do what you love for a living. And in my case, to be allowed to be creative. Yeah.
You ever miss engineering?
Nope.
I just had to ask. Never laying there in bed at night saying, shit, man.
Yeah. Well, I could have been a rich engineer.
Maybe.
I don't know any poor engineers.
Yeah. You got rich is money doesn't always necessarily make you
That's
rich,
true.
if you know what I'm saying. I know a lot of people that are miserable fucking wealthy motherfuckers, to be honest with you. And I always I'm really happy, not happy that they're miserable, but I'm happy that I'm reminded of that periodically, because it always makes sure that I focus on the right things in life. Because, it's a funny saying, money can't buy you happiness. It's true. It gives you options, but some people are just miserable no matter what,
I was reading this article the other day. I can't remember where, but they did this experiment that, after a certain income, people's happiness doesn't go up. It actually went down for some reason.
Interesting. And I've read something similar, and it's not some extravagant.
This is generalizing, but
yeah, but it's not some extravagant amount of money either. I thought the number was maybe like $50,000 to $60,000 or something like that, if I remember correctly. I saw something like that in the States a few years back. Maybe it's adjusted now.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I guess richness comes from many different aspects of life. Not only the financial thing.
Yeah, totally, man. Best childhood memory?
From back in Cyprus. I remember going down to the local record store and, anticipating to buy, an album that, I was, waiting to be released, and taking it home and putting it on the turntable and listening to it, and then reading the liner notes.
Yeah.
You don't really get that nowadays. It's just everything is so readily available with a click of a button.
I know. I missed that. It was because I missed the education from that too. You learned a lot, which is always pretty cool.
I remember I always loved to read who played on what, and then that kind of got me interested later on in following certain guitarists' careers and styles and things like that. And I guess that was part of my musical knowledge developing as a guitar player.
Yeah, and you can find that information online now, but you got to go to that next step. And it's not really, when you read that information on the back of an album cover, it was directly, it was part of your musical, it enriched your musical experience.
Yeah,
and it seems distant when you have to go look it up online for some reason. It's not the same. I don't know, but maybe if we hadn't had that, maybe for people that have only had that, it is part. I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know. I don't know if it's done as much, actually, though.
Well, I mean, vinyl is it's like a collector's thing now, isn't it? And it costs 2 or 3 times as much as it used to in the 70s and 80s. So there you go. Yeah.
Tell me something about yourself that people would be surprised to hear or might find a little odd.
I love watching Columbo.
That is odd, yeah. Did you see that in Cyprus growing up?
No, here. Well, in Cyprus as well, actually, but they show reruns here every weekend.
That's so funny. I think, what's his name? Peter
Falk.
Yeah, he's still around, I think, actually.
No, he died about, I think, 10, 15 years ago. He had dementia.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. Oh, my God. I thought he was still around.
No, he's not around, unfortunately. But yeah, he's...
because I've seen him in movies like when he was much older, but they must have been older, the movies themselves.
Probably, yeah. He was ill the last few years of his life, so he stopped kind of filming, yeah. But he had a very long career, didn't he?
Yeah, I just saw a movie with Nik Cage the other day. But then again, Nik Cage makes like hundreds of movies. So at least here in the States, it's like well over Netflix. Every other movie is like Nik Cage and somebody. What's a perfect day for you, Stelios?
Perfect day. Wow. Wake up, do my daily meditation.
How long do you meditate for?
At the moment, I started off with 10 minutes, but I've been doing it for about a year and a half. So I'm up to 20 minutes now a day.
Wow, that's pretty good, man. That's really good.
Yeah, I find that it relaxes me and it keeps my mind more focused as well. Helps me sleep better at night as well, even though I do it first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
After that, I will probably go for a run or have a workout, then have breakfast, play guitar, write music, and then spend time with my wife and our friends, I guess that would be a good day.
Yeah, man. How long have you been married?
5 years. We've been together for 9.
Hey, congratulations, man. So, what made you get married? Nobody gets married anymore. But you're old school, probably.
We're old school. We both are old school.
Yeah.
I come from a Greek background. She comes from a kind of Mauritian Indian background. So, yeah.
Yeah. More ethnic people usually still get married here, even in the States here. But like my sons, true, I could never see them getting married.
No.
I was talking to my buddy, my business partner in another project I have, and he's originally from Lebanon through Canada.
Okay.
And he said something. I was telling him, bitching about one of my kids. This is a while ago. Something that they did. He goes, "Garber, that happens because you're white." He goes, "Ethnic kids would never do that." I said, "You're 100% right, because it's just the standard is different." He goes, "Absolutely," and it's true, man. It's very true. So all the growing up in New York City, obviously everybody's like 2/3 of the population is not American, and so it's very true what he said. He goes, "That's because you're white, man." I said, "Well, I cannot fix that, man. That's not a problem that I can solve. So it is what it is." And he was very true.
Man, that's funny.
It was true what he said. I was like, "Yeah, you're right. Your girls would never do that." And he goes, "Yep." Most important thing your dad taught you?
To be sociable, to respect people, and not take any shit from anyone.
Yeah, man, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's, I would say those 3 things, yeah. To work hard as well.
How about your mom?
To work hard, to do my homework, be kind and honest. And also I remember one thing she said is don't cut corners, especially when it comes to learning.
Yeah, well, you're really good at that. I could tell you right now, you're like very thorough, well-read, and you certainly are not cutting corners, man.
I guess what she said had an impact on me.
Yeah, man. You could just tell you're super prepared, do your work, do your research, and don't dick around. Like you said, man, you're comfortable being the tortoise, not necessarily the hare. You know what that analogy is, the tortoise and the hare?
The hare and the tortoise. I should know, but I don't know.
Okay, so there was a race with a tortoise and a hare.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember, but it was the bottom line was that the hare...
Oh, is that when the hare fell asleep halfway into the race? And
then the tortoise finished ahead.
Right? Yes.
So, you're the tortoise.
I remember my wife telling me this story, yes.
Yeah, so you're comfortable being the tortoise, which is great, man. Best thing that ever happened to you?
I guess I'm going to sound really cheesy here. Meeting my wife and getting married.
No, that sounds great, man.
And then being able to play guitar for a living.
That's great, man. What's your biggest, well, let me not ask you that. Any hobbies or interests outside of music?
Yeah, quite a few actually. I like working out, running, swimming. I love motor racing. Formula One. Yeah. And when I was younger in Cyprus, I used to water ski quite a bit. But
that's a lot harder than it looks, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I was doing the slalom thing with one ski where you go left and right around the things,
Wow.
Yeah, it was. I really enjoyed it. But when I moved here, it's not easy to get to a water ski club, and the weather doesn't help either.
Yeah, it's freezing there.
Yeah, I like reading books as well in my spare time. I don't get to do that much nowadays because I don't have a lot of free time. But I like reading biographies. I'm reading Steve Lukather's biography at the moment.
Yeah, that just came out not too long ago.
I think that just came out, yeah.
I spoke with him. He was going to come on here to promote it, and then he was mixing some DVD for Toto, and then now they're on tour, so I'm hoping
I think they're on tour at the moment, yeah.
In fact, they'll be down here like next week, I think. So I'm hoping to
Okay.
I'm hoping to have him on the show maybe after the first of the year, whenever the tour is over.
Okay. Yeah. Looking forward to listening to that.
Yeah, that'd be interesting for sure. Talk about a specific experience that changed your life or changed the way you think about things.
I would say it's a personal thing. I mentioned it earlier, with my mom not being very well and suffering from Alzheimer's for the past few years. It's painful to see someone you love so much deteriorate in that way. My parents live far away in Cyprus, and it made me realize how unpredictable life is, how important it is to spend time with our loved ones and family, to make the most of every day. I guess when you're younger, you don't think about these things as much, but the older you get, and because of this experience happening the last, over the past 5-6 years, it's kind of, it makes you reevaluate life and think about what's really important in life.
Man, thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
2 more questions, Stelios, man. And you're just awesome, man. I can't thank you enough for your time.
Thank you, Craig.
Toughest decision you've had to make or hardest thing you've had to do?
I guess coming from a small island to a big city like London and then LA, not knowing anyone and starting my career from scratch, that was quite tough. And then a few years later, deciding to stay in the UK and live far away from my friends and family that I grew up with in order to pursue a music career, those were quite hard decisions, I guess.
Do you still have friends in Cyprus that you grew up with that you're in contact with?
Yeah.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah, really good friends. The best man at our wedding is a very good friend from back in Cyprus, and I've got a few more other friends, who are really good friends, and we keep in touch very regularly, and we always see them when we go there.
Oh, that's cool. Do they speak Greek and English there, or just Greek?
Greek is the first language, is the main language, but everyone pretty much speaks English there at a really good level because, as I said earlier, Cyprus was a British colony until 1960, so English was very widely spoken. So, yeah, they speak both, yeah.
And last question, and what's been the biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years? And has that change been intentional on your part or something that just happened through aging?
That's a great question.
Thanks.
I guess I've become more patient, calmer, and understanding of people's situations. I think meditation has helped me quite a bit to be more relaxed and focused. I don't seem to worry as much. In the past, if I got double booked on a gig and then another gig came on that with an artist I was working with, I would worry that, why can I not do that? But now you just kind of think, that's how it is. I cannot split myself in two. You can only be at one place at any time. And, if people value what you do, you're going to get booked back. And I think I've become more confident in my abilities and my what I can do and what I cannot do. I know my strengths and weaknesses better. So I think that helps me with my whole kind of being calm and more in control of my life, I guess.
All right, Stelios, any final words of wisdom?
Final words of wisdom. Wow. That's a big question, Craig. I guess just a life lesson, if you can say that I got from one of my jazz teachers at university, and I thought it may be useful, to the listeners.
Yeah, man, that's perfect. That was really kind of you.
Well, one of the reasons I chose to study at the London College of Music was to study with a guy called Eddie Harvey, who was a jazz arranger, pianist, trombonist, and educator. He played with Ronnie Scott, Woody Herman, and many others. He had a very long career from the late 1940s up to around the time he passed, in 2012. So basically, Eddie taught jazz composition and ran the jazz workshop and the big band at university. And, I learned a lot from him in terms of how to play in a jazz setting and also to listen and interact with other band members. And he also introduced me to the music of Charlie Parker, which was a revelation for me. Anyway, I remember visiting him just before he passed about 6 years ago. He was in his late 80s and quite ill, but he never lost his sense of humor and was always positive and inspirational. We were reminiscing about my time as his student, his long career, and that in this line of work, you sometimes lose track of what's important in life. And he said to me something that I would always carry with me for life. He said, the greatest form of art is living a life.
Wow.
He said, do your music, but don't forget to also live your life. And this comes from a guy with a career in music for nearly 70 years, So that really stuck with me.
Have you, are you good about, you seem really good about balance?
Not all the time. Yeah. Sometimes I am, yes. I try to. It's always at the back of my mind, but you know how it is with music. You want to be the best you can be, to get, to improve, to get better, and, to work with good people. So, sometimes means putting in extra hours of work, which, other areas of your life can sometimes suffer. So, yeah, it's always a struggle to balance things, but yeah.
Yeah, I struggle with that myself. I think it's work ethic. It doesn't matter what you do, music or, business, whatever you're doing. I think it's always, most people struggle with that are, like your family's most important to you. So why is it so hard? Or whatever it is that's outside of your occupation. It's hard. Why is it so hard to do that? I don't know.
But I guess, it's part of who you are as well. You are, what you offer to your family is, it's part of who you are as a person. And that has something to do with the work that you do. And if you are in the creative industry that we are, being creative and being able to do what you love for a living is part of your life. And that kind of enhances, you would think that it would enhance your life in other ways. And that would indirectly affect, how you are with your family as well.
Yeah, I know, like with me, one of the things I struggle with, I tend to associate productivity with value, self-worth. And that's an inescapable lose. There's a lose game of that for me, because then which means makes it very hard for me to kick back and do nothing. Because if my whole value system is based on being productive and I'm doing nothing, which is totally like normal and cool and healthy. So that's what I struggle with. I know that, man. And I've always struggled with it. And, I was always there for the major things in my kids' lives, never coach their sports and stuff. But, for me, screw that for anybody else, just for yourself to take off and chill out and do shit, Sure.
Well, sometimes it's beneficial to take time off and just, switch off and do nothing. But it's really hard when you're used to working all the time. It becomes a habit in a way.
No, it is a habit. But for me, at least I can go play guitar as a relief. You guys can't really do that because it's like, it's not shit. That's cheating. It's not taking a break, So, well, man, that was really cool. I appreciate that. So you maintained contact with him that whole time since you graduated?
I did on and off, yeah. I mean, he continued teaching at the university for a number of years until he kind of fell ill, and then he stopped teaching the last few years of his life. But he kind of kept in touch with some people, and every now and then he would go back to the university and, if there was a concert or something. So, yeah.
Very cool, man. Well, dude, thank you. I appreciate you thinking of this. This is good stuff. And if anybody has any comments on this, post them up on Facebook or YouTube, or email me. Go to my website for the contact form. And thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Craig. Thank you.
You're awesome. I hope to meet you in person one day, and I can't thank you enough for your time. Let me tell people where they can find you. First of all, it's Stelios K. It's Stelios, and he goes by Stelios K. And his last name is Kalisperides, but that's why he goes. Did I get that right again?
Yep, you get A+.
That's cool, man. That's 2. And that's all the Greek kids I hung out with in school. So let me tell you where to find him online. It's SteliosKmusic.com. He's got a really good website. And on social media, you could find him, again, same place, Stelios K Music, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And you could tell him that you heard his interview and how cool he is. Also, check him out on SoundCloud, again, Stelios K Music. And he's got a lot of tracks there. If you're looking for tracks to license, he's got a pretty good sized catalog over there. If you're looking for someone to do online sessions, to do mixing, engineering, or producing, I would highly encourage you to get a hold of Stelios. And you can go to his website, SteliosKmusic.com, and then go to the contact tab. And also, man, if you want to get some Skype lessons from, I got to believe you'd be a wonderful, like incredibly supportive, encouraging person to work with. So if you're looking for someone like that, go to SteliosKmusic.com and hit him up on the contact tab of his website. And if you see him playing, whether he's with Shalamar or Donovan, what was it? Jason Donovan?
Yeah.
Jason Donovan. I'm like, I know what it is. I have a really sharp memory, but like, I just have like so much shit that's coming.
So, you interview so many people on a daily basis. It's hard to remember everyone's names,
Oh my God. It's like, it's just like overload. And I'm like, I have to forgive myself sometimes. I'm like, Craig, it's not realistic. I actually have this conversation with myself. Craig, it's not realistic that you could remember this volume of information that just got shoved in there. Anyway, Jason Donovan. Back to that. If you see Stelios playing with Jason Donovan or with Shalamar or anybody else, give him a shout out. Go support the shows, buy merch, and tell him hello, and tell him you heard him on here, and you really enjoyed his interview. Man, any final words of wisdom? You are, honestly, man, dude, you're such a good guy to be around. You got such great energy, man. You're such a positive
Thank you,
dude.
Fred. I appreciate it, mate.
Really
I feel the same. Great, really great interview, and I enjoyed our conversation. Thanks for having me on the show. It's an honor.
Oh man, honor is mine. Trust me. Any final words? Good message.
One last thing is the 5 Grand Stereo
yes,
website.
Please. I'm so sorry.
5grandstereo.com, which is our band.
Check out 5 Grand. Go ahead. You finish, and then I'll.
The band, 5grandstereo.com is our website. If you sign up on email, you get a free track as well. And there are some videos of us doing some live studio sessions of the tracks from the album, and some information about the band, about press, about news shows that are coming up. So, yeah. Check them out, 5grandstereo.com. And also, go see him in concert, man. You'll have a great time. Your videos are really well done. It's like old school, like big budget MTV videos. I don't know who's doing them. Really? You guys are probably doing them yourself, but I mean, they're like really cool. Oh, the 5 Grand Stereo ones. Yeah. Well, we hired a crew for that, but the Anyone Can Be a Star video, it was actually done by Chris, the singer. He's a very talented guy, amazing songwriter, singer, and he's a very talented guy. Yeah. Check out that video, everybody. Anyone Can Be a Star, and buy Sex and Money. It's their first album, and they're getting ready to work on a second album. And see him in concert, man. I wish you guys were here. I could see you in concert. And that's it, man. Thank you for everything. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, Craig. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. You're welcome. My pleasure. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it with a friend on your social media channels. We certainly appreciate your support and your help with this. Thanks again to Stelios K for spending time with us. I really appreciate it. And make sure you go to the homepage of everyonelovesguitar.com. Sign up to get on our newsletter list. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.